Welcome back. You're watching the Dr. Nandi Show, and we're talking about biohacking, the real truth. Now, right before the break, you heard from my next guest, Teri, and a couple years ago, she faced a very serious health crisis. She was told she had Lyme disease and Rocky Mountain spotted fever, but antibiotic and steroids did not help, and she continued to get sicker. Now, Teri is a nutritional counselor and an integrative practitioner, and so it's no surprise, right, that she figured out what was going on with her health, and then she, quote-unquote, biohacked herself back to good health. Let's find out what she did. Please welcome my friend, Teri Cochrane.
Teri,
thank you so much.
Of course.
What happened? Tell me all about it.
Well, you know, I was doing my practice and clinical practice, having great health, and within 24 hours I felt like I'd been hit with a 2x4.
Wow.
I went to the hospital. The signs and the report showed I had liver damage. Then my brain started swelling. I had brain encephalitis. Then I started losing motion in my hands. I became really, really numb, neuropathy, and then I started losing my mental cognition, and I use my brain for a living, so it was really scary. Went to several infectious disease doctors. They said you have all these strands of Lyme, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and you have a 15% chance of surviving. And if you get better, yes, very scary. If you get better, it'll be a really long road back. And so I followed the protocol, multiple antibiotics, IV antibiotics, steroids, back in the hospital 4 times, but I knew something wasn't right. And in my practice, I knew that it was virally driven.
Yes.
And so when I really listened to my body and I biohacked myself, I was able to discern that I had reignited all of these viruses. I had 7 viruses that turned on in me like a Christmas tree.
Wow.
Yes.
And so it's almost like they got reactivated. So just so people who are following can maybe understand, is that when you have an infection or something that activates, when you have an infection like the 2 that she talked about, that the doctors told her she had, that activates the immune system, and for some people it can reactivate viruses. So what did you do? Well,
what I found was, well, why is it that me being such a healthy, health-oriented individual that really knows about nutrition and knows about how to feed my body, why did it happen? And so what I discerned, what biohacking is to me, is to really know thyself.
Correct.
And so why? What was the why? And my why was, it was stress. I was going through a very difficult personal situation, and stress was my undoing. And I was so skilled in every other aspect of my life, but I was very unskilled in managing my stress. And when I surrendered to the process, and at that time I was also coming out with my immune builder that I've self-formulated, when I surrendered to the stress, I went on my immune builder and I looked at it like a virus, where I became my wilditarian self, where I stopped eating all meat at that point because my liver was so damaged, and I stopped eating anything that had a lot of sulfur, oxalates, things that are so healthy for us. The body started calming down. And within 2 weeks, my liver enzymes that were at damaged levels were back to normal.
That's awesome. And we talk about a lot on our show is that stress can cause gut inflammation and causes the gut to not be healthy.
Yes.
And that's the beginning of health. And so a lot of us, not just Teri, suffer from stress. And stress once in a while is good, right? Because it gets you alert. But once you have it constantly or on a chronic basis, and it's unresolved stress, it can really, really wreak havoc. And you have, from this, you've now practiced and you've got the Cochrane Method. Tell us about that. I love that.
So the Cochrane Method is rooted in genetics. We're all very unique.
Correct.
And so what may be good for your neighbor and worked for them, for example, keto may have worked for your neighbor, but it would really not be good for you. And so the Cochrane Method is really rooted in, we start with the basis of genetics, and then I have 4 portals that trip those genes. That's pathogenic, environmental, emotional, and physical. And when we understand the why, you can have the same symptomology and have completely different root causes of what tripped those genes. And I use that in my practice. We see people from all over the world with really complex health conditions, including Lyme. I'm a Lyme expert. And it works because we get to why did it happen, and then we untangle it. We create their own little personal algorithm with a supplement and food plan, and they get back to balance.
And Teri, it's amazing. And we talk about 5 steps to becoming your own healthier. Very similarly, is that what is the root cause of so many of this? We're not saying, here that if you just take away your stress, everything's going to be over. It's really looking at all the factors in your life that could be causing this. And diet is one of them.
Yes.
Food and what you eat. And you're a wilditarian. I know we've had you on the show before talking about being a wilditarian and eating foods that are clean and that we've seen for thousands of years.
Yes.
And when you do that, you don't stress your gastrointestinal system. You don't cause gut inflammation, and you don't continue that cascade of disease. And lots of people don't do that. And it's the analogy I always use is that you look at a city after it's bombed and saying, how do I rebuild it?
Exactly.
Rather than going back and saying, what caused the bombing so we prevent it? Great stuff, Teri. Always a pleasure. I know she's busy. She's going from here to DC, and she wanted to stop by to give the information for you, all of you. So real pleasure.